For 31-year-old Christy Bautista, the evening of March 31st, 2023 was supposed to be a simple, safe experience. She was in D.C. for a concert. What should have been a routine trip, but a sudden noise at her hotel room door would be the prelude to a crime that would shock the city. Surveillance footage showed a man arriving on a bike, parking in front of her window, and then standing at her front door as if he was listening. Within minutes, Christy would be fighting for her life against a man she had never seen before. What followed was a monstrous act of violence that left investigators with two horrifying questions. Who was the killer on the bike? And more importantly, how was he free to strike in the first place? To understand the full horror of what was lost, you first have to know about the life that was taken. Christy Bautista was 31-year-old from Northern Virginia, a James Madison University graduate whose friends and families described as a shining light and a free spirit. They remember her with golden butterfly hair clips, a symbol of her bright and outgoing personality. She loved hiking, board games, and especially music. Her family even had a motto, a flag that read "Full Send," which represented her passion for embracing life completely. On that fateful day, Christy, she drove to D.C. for a show and checked into the Ivy City Hotel. She was carefully parking her car directly in front of her ground floor room to be safe. She was just settling in, ordering a pizza, when her evening was violently and irrevocably shattered. Just over an hour after Christy checked in, George L. Sidnor Jr. arrived on a bicycle. After lingering outside her door for about 15 seconds, he barged in. Christy desperately tried to escape. A witness heard her scream, "Help! Help!" twice as she was dragged back inside and the door slammed shut. That witness immediately called 911. When police arrived minutes later, they were met with a closed door. George initially claimed everything was fine, but an officer saw blood on his hands through the blinds. Using a master key, they entered a scene of true horror. Christy was on the floor, the victim of a frenzied attack, having been stabbed more than 30 times. Sitting calmly on the bed as if nothing had happened was George, smoking a cigarette. The murder weapon, a kitchen knife, had been used with such force that its blade had broken. The randomness of the attack is what's most chilling. There was no known connection between Christy and her killer. So the question wasn't just who did this, but how was this even possible? The answer revealed a disturbing failure of the justice system. George Sidnor, a man with a long criminal history and a known history of targeting women, should not have been on the street. Just months before the murder, he had pled guilty to an attempted robbery where he had attacked another woman. He was then released and failed to show up for his sentencing. He was a wanted man, free after being charged with a violent crime. When he rode a bike to the Ivy City Hotel and took Christy's life, as her aunt would later state, the system is supposed to keep victims safe. He was free to murder Christy. The details of this case are a difficult but necessary reminder of the vulnerabilities in our justice system. If you believe in telling these stories to demand accountability and raise awareness, please consider subscribing to the channel. For Christy's family, the wait for justice was agonizing, stretching for nearly 3 years. George was charged with first-degree murder, with prosecutors highlighting the heinous, atrocious, or cruel nature of the crime. He ultimately accepted a plea deal just this past week. On January 16th of 2026, he appeared in court, where over 100 of Christy's friends and family gathered, many wearing butterfly clips in her honor. Her sister called George an evil monster, emphasizing that Christy had taken every precaution. George, for his part, offered a brief, hollow apology. The judge, calling the crime vicious and sadistic, imposed a maximum sentence of 40 years in prison. The 40-year sentence delivered a measure of justice, ensuring George would be held accountable. The judge said the sentence needed to serve as a message that such senseless violence is unacceptable. But for Christy's family, the verdict doesn't erase the system's failure. They were left with a profound loss, a hole in their family that they described as a shell of what it was. Their fight for the maximum sentence wasn't just for Christy, but to protect the community from a predator who should have already been behind bars. Christy Bautista's story is a tragic testament to a life stolen by inexplicable random violence, and a heartbreaking reminder of a crime that could have and should have been prevented.